every U.S. tank used in World War II. Between 1941 and 1945, America produced 88,000 tanks. From North Africa to Normandy to the Pacific, these steel beasts fought the deadliest war in history. But Sherman wasn't the only one. Today, we're covering every single U.S. tank used in World War II. We will start from the light tanks. 1 M2 light tank, the foundation. This is where American armored warfare truly began. The M2 light tank was America's first mass-produced tank of the modern era, armed with either a 37 mm gun or multiple machine guns depending on the variant. It was designed in the late 1930s when tank doctrine was still being written. Here's the thing. The M2 was already obsolete before Pearl Harbor. Its thin armor couldn't stop much more than rifle fire, and its armament was laughable compared to what Germany was fielding. But over 400 were built, and they served one crucial purpose: training. Thousands of American tankers learned their craft inside an M2 before shipping overseas in something better. Every Sherman crew started here. 2 M3 Stuart the Honey. If the M2 was the foundation, the M3 Stuart was the first American tank that could actually fight. British crews gave it the nickname Honey because compared to their own temperamental tanks, the Stuart was mechanically reliable, easy to maintain, and surprisingly pleasant to operate. Armed with a 37 memory gun and capable of speeds up to 36 miles per hour, the Stuart saw action everywhere: North Africa, the Pacific, Europe, and even the Eastern Front through Lend-Lease. To the Soviets, over 13,000 M3 Stuarts were built. Here's a fact that shows just how tough this little tank was. Stuarts were still being used in combat as late as 1996 during the Paraguayan civil conflict. That's over 50 years of service. Small, fast, and utterly reliable, the Honey earned its name. 3 M5 Stuart, the Honey's upgrade. The M5 was essentially the M3 Stuart with a new automotive system. By 1942, America needed every tank engine it could get for medium tank production. So, engineers replaced the Stuart's aircraft-derived radial engine with twin Cadillac V8 automobile engines. The result? A tank that was actually easier to manufacture, more fuel-efficient, and quieter than its predecessor. Over 8,000 M5 Stuarts were produced, and they served alongside the M3 until the end of the war. Same gun, same armor, same mission, just a more practical way to build it. American engineering at its finest. 4 M22 Locust, the airborne tank. This is one of the strangest tanks America ever built. The M22 Locust was designed with one insane purpose: to be carried by glider and dropped behind enemy lines with airborne troops. Weighing only 7.4 tons, less than half the weight of a Sherman, the Locust was small enough to fit inside a British Hamilcar glider. Its 37's Merce mine gun was already obsolete by the time it entered service, and its armor could be penetrated by heavy machine guns. But here's the catch: American forces barely used it. The British actually deployed more Locusts than we did, using them during Operation Varsity, the massive airborne crossing of the Rhine in March 1945. Only 830 were built, and most never saw combat. A fascinating concept that arrived too late and too weak to matter. 5 M24 Chaffee, the light tank done right. If the Locust was a compromise, the Chaffee was a triumph. The M24 Chaffee entered service in late 1944, and it represented everything a light tank should be. Armed with a lightweight 75 minigun, the same caliber as the Sherman, it could actually hurt enemy armor while maintaining the speed and agility expected of a reconnaissance vehicle. Crews loved it. The Chaffee was fast, nimble, mechanically reliable, and packed genuine firepower. Over 4,700 were built, and they arrived just in time for the final push into Germany. Here's how good the Chaffee was. It remained in U.S. service until 1953 and saw extensive combat in the Korean War. Some nations kept them operational into the 1980s. The ultimate evolution of the American light tank. The medium tanks, the workhorses of victory. 6 M2 medium tank, the forgotten first. Before the Sherman, before the Lee, there was the M2 medium, armed with a 37 mm gun in the turret and a ridiculous array of machine guns bristling from every surface. The M2 medium looked more like a land battleship than a modern tank. Only 1 in 12 were ever built. And here's why. By the time production started in 1939, the German Invasion of Poland had already demonstrated that the M2's design was hopelessly outdated. Not a single M2 medium saw combat. Every single one was used for training purposes only, a necessary step in American tank development, but a dead end nonetheless. 7 M3 Lee, M3 Grant the stopgap. This tank shouldn't have worked. On paper, it was a disaster. The M3 Lee mounted its main 75 mm gun in a side sponson, not a turret, limiting its traverse to only 30 degrees. The turret held a secondary 37 mm gun that was already obsolete against German armor. It was tall, awkward, and required a crew of 6 or 7 men depending on the variant. But here's the truth. The M3 Lee saved the North African campaign. When it arrived in 1942, it was the first Allied tank in the desert that could reliably kill German panzers at range. Its 75 mm gun gave British and American forces the firepower they desperately needed. The British version, called the Grant, featured a modified turret with a lower profile and radio equipment. Over 6,200 M3 Lees and Grants were produced. They served with American, British, Australian, and Soviet forces. Was it perfect? Absolutely not. Was it necessary? Absolutely yes. The bridge between disaster and victory. 8 M4 Sherman the backbone. No tank represents American involvement in World War II more than the Sherman. Named after Civil War General William Tecumseh Sherman, the M4 became the most produced American tank of the war, over 49,000 units across all variants. Armed with a 75 mm gun, 8 are upgraded to 76 memory in some variants, the Sherman was mechanically reliable, easy to manufacture, and simple to maintain. American industry could produce Shermans faster than Germany could produce anything. Here's what made the Sherman special. It wasn't the best tank on the battlefield. German Tigers and Panthers outgunned it. But it could be shipped across oceans, repaired in the field, and replaced quickly when destroyed. Shermans served with every Allied nation. They fought on every front. They became the physical symbol of American industrial might. The critics will tell you the Sherman was a death trap or a Ronson lighter. The truth is more complicated. The Sherman's survival rate was comparable to other medium tanks of the era, and its reliability meant more tanks were actually available for combat. When historians talk about the arsenal of democracy, they're talking about the Sherman. 9 M4A3E2 Sherman Jumbo, the breakthrough tank. Take a Sherman. Now add significantly more armor. That's the Jumbo. The M4A3E2 Jumbo was designed for one purpose, leading the assault against fortified positions. Its frontal armor was nearly doubled compared to the standard Sherman, thick, enough to stop German 75 mm anti-tank rounds. Only 254 Jumbos were ever built, making them rare and precious. Here's what commanders did. They'd put a Jumbo at the front of an armored column. The Jumbo would absorb the first shots while regular Shermans maneuvered and returned fire. Some crews loved it. Others complained it was too slow and the 75 mm gun couldn't penetrate German heavy tanks. But when you needed to punch through, the Jumbo was your tank. The heavy tanks, the giants that almost were. 10 M6 heavy tank, the elephant in the room. The M6 was America's first true heavy tank. Weighing over 57 tons and armed with a 3-inch gun plus a coaxial 37 mm cannon, the M6 was an absolute beast on paper. It was meant to counter anything the Germans or Japanese could field. Here's the problem. It was too heavy. By the time the M6 was ready, American logistics officers had already realized something critical. Shipping and supporting a 57-ton tank overseas was a nightmare. Bridges couldn't support it. Transport ships couldn't carry enough of them. Supply lines couldn't maintain them. Only 40 M6 heavy tanks were ever built. None saw combat. The M6 spent the entire war training crews and testing technologies that would eventually appear in later designs. A giant that never got its chance. 11 M26 Pershing, the answer to the Tiger. The M26 Pershing was the tank American tankers begged for, armed with a 90 mm gun capable of penetrating German Tiger and Panther tanks at combat ranges. The Pershing was fast for its weight, well-armored, and genuinely dangerous. But here's the tragedy. It arrived too late. Only about 20 Pershings saw combat before the European War ended. They performed magnificently, including a famous duel where a Pershing destroyed a German Tiger in the streets of Cologne, captured on film. Over 2,200 Pershings were eventually built, but the vast majority arrived after the shooting stopped. The Pershing would go on to become one of America's primary tanks during the Korean War. Proving everything tankers knew during WWII, this was the tank they'd needed all along. Victory's last arrival, 12 T-28/T-95 Super Heavy Tank the Monster. This wasn't really a tank, it was closer to a moving fortress. The T-28, later redesignated T-95 and called a gun motor carriage, weighed 95 tons and mounted a massive 105 mm gun designed to destroy any fortification in its path. It had no turret. It could barely move faster than walking pace. It was so wide that outer tracks had to be removed to fit on railroad cars. Only 2 prototypes were ever built. Neither saw combat. The T-28 was designed to breach the Siegfried Line and assault Japanese fortifications, missions that never materialized before the war ended. One of the 2 prototypes was lost for decades before being rediscovered in 1974 at Fort Belvoir, overgrown with vegetation. America's most extreme armored experiment. Now I have to ask you, which of these tanks do you think deserves more recognition? Drop your number and answer in the comments, and if you learned something today, consider subscribing, because we've got a lot more history to cover.